And the glass was the thing that really inspired this, but it's actually a bronze solder that we used for this Mayan world tree. And they're all facing one direction as though they're chanting. And this was photographs of some of the ritual and the space that was in the outside. It was a beautiful courtyard where people could stand upstairs and look down in. And since then, I've done the performance and the ritual in Mexico City in January. And then, in October, last October in Mexico City at El Chopo, and then Chicago in January. So it's been, and I believe it's going to be, I'm going to do the performance again in Tulane.
In New Orleans.
In New Orleans in
nice.
October, yeah.
Very nice. And now here's the version that was created for the Missing Piece. Tell us how you got invited to be into the Missing Piece. How did you end up in the Missing Piece project?
Yes, well, I had been in communication with Randy.
Randy Rosenberg, the curator.
Yeah. And I was just telling her about this project because I really wanted to do this project for the women of Juarez. And as I said earlier, I wanted to give something back to Mexico that so much has been given to me as far as I'm concerned in Mexico. And a lot of heart goes into it. And so I was telling her about the project and calling her and said, but I don't know, once, not that long, but, well, I think we opened in February. I think she called me in December and said that she would like to have this be as part of the Missing Piece. So she incorporated the actual whole installation in there. But I was worried about the shipping of the World Tree. There were some complications on that and space. So we narrowed it down. The first opening at the Fowler had the whole installation.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, but after that we just narrowed it down to the brooms and the DVD and the metates. So that's how that came
Well,
about.
and it becomes more altar-like, I think, in this in the traveling version, so to
yes,
speak. Yeah.
Because you don't get the kind of space I had in Querétaro, which then the whole thing really became an altar space. But when you're crunching things down a little bit here and it changes, it's just better. Yeah, it worked better this way. Yeah, and you're right. Yeah. And these pieces were also part of a show that Randy curated called Towards a Balanced Earth.
And where was that?
That showed in New Zealand. Yeah. And so these are also glasswork, and the top one is the Corazón del Cielo, and it has the DNA, the double helix coming out of the center. And you've got the Mayan glyph of the galactic center in the backdrop. And then at the bottom, it's this insect that's morphing into a leaf. So it's about the earth heating up and things morphing and shifting. So these two pieces were actually hung together, woven Corazón del Cielo y Corazón de la Tierra.
Yes, earth and sky.
Yeah, yeah.
And now this is in Houston at Project Row Houses.
Yes, it was in 2007.
And when did you move to Houston?
2009.
And for people who don't know what Project Row Houses is, let's start by you telling us about that.
Why don't you tell them?
Well, it was begun by a group of African American artists, if I'm not mistaken, and they have transformed these old row houses into, exhibition spaces for projects, various site-specific installations, and now Linda Shearer, I know, is heading the program there. So tell us about your experience at Project Row Houses.
Oh, yes. I was there for 3 weeks making this tree, and I found this ficus tree on the road on my way before I left to go to the United States. Drive to the U.S. And I thought, oh, that's perfect for this piece. And I had been photographing these trees during the time that I had been spending in Querétaro to make the installation for Luz y Solidaridad. I was photographing these trees. But all of these came from this one particular um, square in Querétaro. I've photographed hundreds, but these were my favorite. And they were printed here by Michael Smith, actually, from San Antonio. And the tree was, I brought the ficus tree and painted it a pale blue. And so I was weaving this tree while I was in the Project Row House, and they have no air conditioning. So I'd go in very early in the morning and work until about 1 o'clock. And these houses, you know, they really were row houses. And so I felt like I was like one of the women there who had been doing stitching, you know, sitting for a long period of time doing stitching or weaving, or knitting or, you know, crocheting, you know, all the things that came into play at that time. It was quite wonderful. And the people were terrific. It's in the second ward or third ward, I can't remember right now. And it was started actually also with the idea of, not my project, but the Project Row Houses for young pregnant girls who didn't have a place to go. So part of the row houses were made as homes for them. And now they have Rice students headed by Danny Samuels of Rice University. They've built a lot of wonderful houses. And the architecture students are designing them. And also there are houses there that the young women, once they have their children, these young women can live there, and you know they work and they have a home there. So it's very much evolved, and it's really growing into the community. And so if you're in Houston, it's definitely worth seeing. It's a wonderful, wonderful project, yeah. And Rick Lowe is now pretty much since, I don't remember, 10 years or 15 years ago, I guess he took over as, he's taking this modality to this particular model, to other areas and other cities, which are really beginning to, it's become very famous as a model in other cities. Yeah. So they do theme work, you know, each round, they call them rounds, they do a theme. And
so what was the theme when you were
This
there?
one was on racism, and you don't have to really address it literally, you know, they don't require that kind of thing. But I just wanted to talk about, again, bringing the body, and to me these trees were like a torso, the body, and holding the duality, you know, or holding the diversity, holding the paradox. And I thought these trees were so beautiful for that, you know, that a tree can actually hold that, you know. There is no, you know, one can be diverse and hold it at once. It's a beautiful vessel for holding it, I should think, you know, that's what I was looking at it. And anyway, that's what this piece is about. And these are recent pieces, and since I moved to, actually it was done in, 2009. I think I think I needed to make these because I was having a culture shock. I think my heart was
coming back from Mexico
I think
to the U.S.
I had no idea what I was going to do, but I don't know why I made them, but I'm pretty sure that's what it. Yeah, I had a bit of a culture shock, and yes, I think that's why I ended up making these. You know, it's like, yeah, this is, I'm going to grow a new heart. And this is a new experience.
New cycle.
A new cycle, new experience. Yeah. Yeah. And these are some of the new pieces and kind of my working with investigating light.
And what does this matrix of line represent for you?
Line has always represented to me in the sense of weaving, if that's what you're talking about.
No, in terms of...
just the triangle, or?
No, the network of line itself. You've talked about this before, about the infrastructure is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate a little bit about that concept?
Yeah. Well, it's no different than pretty much the spring, you know, this string theory. You know, it's all about the infrastructure. Whether you're looking at a leaf, you know, and the membrane, the green membrane is left of the leaf, and you have only the structure left. It's just very, very delicate weaving of this. And, the neurons, I mean, we have the neural pathways. I think, and we were talking about earlier, the filaments of light. And I think the infrastructure of nature to me has become more and more fascinating. And so I think, I think of nature as this enormous being, and I think doing this weaving for me is like trying to connect with what that is, and
To make the invisible visible.
and to make the invisible visible. Yeah, exactly. And that's what the dowsing does, too. That's what the dowsing is sort of like. You can draw a line, and suddenly that's a visible line. And also drawing in space in three-dimensional
Yes.
format is really fascinating. I can't draw anymore with a pencil. It just absolutely doesn't. I could if whatever. But somehow it doesn't work for me anymore.
Do you like to draw three-dimensionally?
It's three-dimensionally. It's much more interesting to me. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you started making some digital prints.
Yes, these inkjet prints are part of the photographs that I took of the fireworks in Mexico.
Okay.
And some of the photographs of the glass that I've been doing, except that I've evolved my photographs. Instead of transferring them, I'm now photographing them in a way that they can actually depict this light. And so somebody taught me how to layer things on Photoshop, and that's all it
You've been
took.
having a blast with that, right?
I think I stayed there for 2 weeks, never left the house. It was and this was a show that was called The Tree of Life in the Nave Museum in Victoria last year. And so it was wonderful to be able to address that.
And what about the cross formation? Is there
that
some symbolism
particular
there?
cross is actually refers to the Tree of Life, this square kind of cross. Yeah. And this was the second room. The first room had all those inkjet photographs, and the second room had this confluence of glass, woven glass and blown glass,
And
in the
also
center
these,
of the
these
room.
paintings, are they?
And these are pastels.
Pastels.
Yeah, they're pastels. And they're about 32 by 40 inches. So you got a real sense of the generator. There was a generator in the center of the room. And in the Mayan calendar, the Tree of Life is the generator. And it's the generator of consciousness. And the way they're looking at it right now, in the Mayan calendar, coming up to
The 2012,
the
end of the
2012, although I follow Kaleman's work, Johann Kaleman, Carl Johann Kaleman, and his translation of the Mayan calendar is that it's going to end October 28th, 2011. So, in case anybody...
Sooner than we thought.
Sooner than we thought. But I do love how he works with that, and he's been working with the Mayan.
And what is his? Does he have a
Mayan
theory
elders
about
as well.
how the implications of that?
Well, the implication is that that time is what we used to experience as maybe 2 million years. We are now experiencing in 20 days. So in this year, we're experiencing...
Everything's accelerated.
It's accelerated to the point where we're experiencing everything in a 20-day moment rather than 500 years. And what we experienced in 500 years, not long ago,
You can do in
is
20
now
days.
in 20 days. So everybody's going berserk.
So, but what happens after the end of the
Everybody's going
calendar?
crazy with this.
I mean, what's his theory about what happens after the end of the calendar? Does he have?
There's no theory about after, although the Mayans, whom he's working with, and some of the research I've been doing through them. But yes, they feel, and that is what's happening also, is that it's the plasma, the electromagnetic energy that's coming out of the sun, the Hunabku, is the thing that's going to cause some problems with us, the electromagnetic. So the other day they actually had a film on the news of this unbelievable flare that came out of the sun. Did you see anybody see that? My God, it was incredible. So they're experiencing uncharted territory as far as solar flares right now. So that's what the Mayans believe, is that we're going to have a period of time which doesn't seem to be that long, but where we will have a problem with our anything that's electrical, you know. So my phone went crazy today. So.
A little warning, an omen.
No, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I do without a phone now. Yeah, it's like, okay, do we have to
Well,
really get used to
a
this?
year ago this time, I had Daniel Pinchbeck, the author of 2012, sitting in this chair, and of course
Oh.
his in conjunction with the psychedelic exhibition, and his
Oh,
theory
interesting.
is
Wow.
that there's a subtle shifting in consciousness that will be taking place. That's how he seems to see it.
Well, that's exactly what I see it as, is that this tree of life is a generator of consciousness, the evolution of consciousness. And, but we also have many other eras that you know, there are people that, I mean, in other words, not everybody is evolving in consciousness at the same time. Different people are evolving in different ways, so it's not actually just like we're all going to wake up one morning and be Buddhas or something.
Yeah.
But it is a generator, and it is, I mean, you know, it's the Mayan calendar is the only thing that actually depicts, for humans, an evolution of consciousness, which is absolutely mind-boggling when you think about it. That's the only calendar and the only thing that we have.
Well, and technology
that actually
too.
shows the
technology is playing quite a role in this too, with the reshaping of communications, and again, everything is much more expeditious with texting and all of that. You know.
Oh, no. You know, with the expansion of the time and crunching of time is incredible. But what I mean as far as, I'm not saying science doesn't show the evolution of consciousness. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that
okay.
as I think indicative of that something is really changing in human interaction, and how consciousness is part of that, of course.
Yeah.
The way we communicate has
Right.
changed so radically, you know, just in a very short
Right.
time span.
Right, that's totally expanded our perception of
So it's an exciting time.
being there, yes, truly. And so the drawings are actually about the days and the nights, which are a different energy coming up to the end of the Mayan
These
calendar.
drawings here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and we're going to look at the most recent work here, and then we'll move on to questions. So let's tell us
Okay,
about
yeah.
what you're working on.
Well, these are ones that I'm just working with, and again, the tree comes into play. And on the right is what I call weaving language. And I did this in a linear fashion, but it's actually had an installation of it where it covered a large space, a wall. And it's all about communicating in a new way.
In a new language.
Yeah, weaving language.
A weaving language.
Yeah.
And these?
And these are the ones I was talking about, photographing my work, my glass work, like on the right-hand side, these photographs, in a different way so that the work becomes itself the piece, not just a part of a piece. And I'm finding it really interesting experimenting with this. So this is all in the very beginning stages of that. And on the left, it's layering. So I'm working with two-dimensional. What I'm trying to do is go work on a more two-dimensional with still that essence of depth and layering, you know. And these are called Semillas de Luz. And this was shown in Tucson, and it was an installation in Tucson. And each one of these are actually models for what I also work with photographing, with doing the photographs. And this will actually end up being a wall piece as well, another wall piece. And the shadows are really beautiful with them, too. Yeah.
And then finally, this is a work in progress, I believe?
Yes, this is a work in progress.
And could you tell us what it is?
And this is a show on biodiversity and artists working with biodiversity and biomimicry. And so much of this work, I'm going to do one piece, which will be a pendulum like this. So it's called Divining Nature, the Art of Search. So the concept for my piece in this is I will be doing this large pendulum, a 6-foot pendulum of woven glass in a 15-foot room. On the outside, I'm going to have a small table that will be the process that I'm going to be doing with co-creating with nature. So essentially, I'm going to be opening a conversation with nature and eventually asking nature, rather than mimicking nature about some process that it's, as far as ecological or environmental process for us as humans. My conversation is going to be with nature about what it wants to do. So the actual piece will be that. But since the show is going to travel and I will have a couple of years to continue working on it and grow with it, it will be a conversation with nature on what it wants. And I'm just barely getting my head around that one. Artists, as artists, we ask the question all the time. We're always asking questions. But now I think it's time, because I've been working with nature and the infrastructure of nature for so long, I've decided it's time to really jump in and work with actually a conversation with nature.
And where will this conversation open?
I've already started this conversation with nature, but
where will it be exhibited is what I'm asking.
Oh, I see. Where will the conversation? Yeah, the whole show that is called Nature's Toolbox will open at the Field Museum in Chicago in February. Yeah.
Of 2012.
Yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, that concludes the dialogue portion. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate it.
And now we'd be very happy to take questions from the audience, and we do have a microphone since we're videotaping. So it's very blurry out there, but if you raise your hand,
Can we
hopefully.
turn that down?
We're videotaping, so I don't know if we want to adjust the lights, but oh, that's a little nicer.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you so much.
All right, so questions, yes, over here on the other side. If you could just wait for the microphone, and then we'll jump right in.
I noticed that some of the glass pieces that in the earlier pieces, the Árboles de la Vida, that the base is extremely small and not very large in diameter to hold up those big wings and things. I would really be concerned about it falling over. Just a touch might. How do you feel it?
I think it was a photograph, because actually they were real thick. You couldn't see it, but they were quite thick leaves. They're very heavy, the bases, and they're all put together. They're all fused together. So the leaves, it's a much heavier base than it looks. But thank you. I appreciate that. That could be something I would definitely consider. Yeah.
Another question? Yes, up in front.
Hello. What is the symbolism of the knot in the brooms?
Oh, that's a great question. The symbolism of the knot is both the cutting off of the feminine energy, the feminine, and on the other hand, it's like the mystical knot, or the Buddhist knot. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
It's kind of hard to sweep with a broom that's got a knot in it, too.
This is called visual art.
Any more questions?
To me,
Could we pass the mic up over here just one moment?
it's not so much a question.
A comment, yes.
I mean, to me, the knot just conveyed the femininity of of it. To me, it was not a broom per se, although it could be interpreted. It also was length of hair, feminine. So I thought that was my first take on it.
Yeah, that's really great.
It's a reasonable
Some
interpretation.
people, yes,
It was
absolutely.
very,
Some
very
people have
nice.
seen it as, hair, of a young woman's hair. Yeah.
My take on Mexican women is they wear their hair very long and also straight, and that's a characteristic, whether, when there's a mix of cultures there between the Spanish and the Indians who were there. So anyway, it speaks of their place. So very nice.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Any last questions? Yes?
I noticed you use a lot of esoteric mysticism, symbology in your paintings, sculptures, and you mentioned sacred texts of India.
My leanings are more shamanic, and so that's been more my investigation and interest. And recently, as of maybe 8 years ago, I started really working with Wangyal Rinpoche, who is a Bon tradition, which is the shamanic tradition of Tibetan, early Tibetan.
But I think I see also some of the chakras, the sun chakras, and some of your.
Oh yes, yeah. Tibetan Buddhism. I mean, in any tradition, you pretty much have chakras.
And you don't practice yoga?
Yeah. What is your exact question?
Basically, do you follow any teachings of anyone over the others? But basically, it's just Indian.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I have just done different studies with different teachers.
So you're not an advocate for any one particular practice?
I'm an advocate for all of them,
All of them.
for
yeah.
sure. And I do more than one. I